This is Governor Bobber. I like good day doctors.
George Allen here. Good day, doctors.
Go!
You're watching Dr. Politics.
They're Dr. Politics. He's the one to see. Breaking down the news with sharp analysis. From Congress halls to campaign trails, he tells the truth when all else fails. They're Dr. Politics. Dr. Politics. Exposing the spin, the lies and tricks. Dr. Politics. Dr. Politics. He calls it straight, no politics as usual. Love from backroom deals to primetime fights. He sheds some light and sets things right. Debates, elections, policy. He cuts through all the DC sleaze. Oh, Dr. Politics. He's got the facts. Dr. Politics. No holding back. Dr. Politics. Go away. Dr. Politics, he's got the facts. Dr. Politics, no holding back. Dr. Politics.
Hey, it is May 23rd. We're almost halfway through 2025, Don. And welcome back, Don. The doctors are all here. I'm back from Florida. Don's back from his world escapades. And Dave's back.
Yeah, and I held
Dave
the
never
fort
went anywhere.
last week.
What's that?
I held the fort down last week.
Actually, week before last, because I was on last week with you. It was the week before that. And you did a good job. I saw that. Yeah, good job on the
thanks.
show. But yeah, I mean, how was Japan?
It was good. So
Good.
our trip took us from Baltimore to Dallas to South Korea, where we spent a couple of days, and then we flew into Japan for a few days to see my daughter-in-law, who wanted to do. We did some sightseeing in a couple places in Japan. Went actually to Nagasaki, from where my mother is from, and to the atomic bomb museum for the atomic bomb, which she survived and lived to the ripe old age of 97. So I don't know. You go there, you go to this atomic bomb museum, and it's like, okay, I understand the death and devastation, but the whole push in Nagasaki is all about peace, 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 peace. It's like, so a little, for me, it's a little bit like, I don't know. I think my father would have just been like rolling his eyes, because I sure felt like it sometimes. It's like, this is a little bit too much.
And yeah, I mean, it's
But if you've never been there, you have to go to Japan and Korea, just because the food is great, transportation system is really good. You don't need a car for most things. You can just bus, rail, taxi, sort of extremely efficient.
so did you ride the bullet train?
No, well, we rode in Japan. We rode the Shinkansen, which is close. It stops at various places, but it's one of those things that's kind of, I guess, like the Excel. It gets you there faster. You pay more money for it, but it's worth it.
I tell you, how clean were those Tokyo subway stations?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's interesting that you mentioned that in general, because I kept looking around in both Korea and Japan, particularly in Japan. I kept looking around for public trash receptacles. They don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
In essence, it's like, if you've got some trash, like tissues or whatever, you pretty much have to go back to your hotel room.
Yeah.
Or your apartment. You can't find, unless you're in a 7-Eleven or something like that. It's like, and I'm going to ask you guys a question, because 7-Eleven is huge in Japan. It's now a Japanese-owned corporation. It started off as a Texas-owned corporation. They licensed, the name also to the Japanese, Japan did a big thing. Then the Japanese bought the Southland Corporation and run the entire thing nationwide. But in Japan, you have 7-Eleven, a place called Lawson's, and a place called Family Mart. And they've got lots of prepared food and all kinds of stuff like that, and it runs 24/7, and they are brightly lit, convenient, and fairly large. You go to Korea, the equivalent to that is fairly small. I mean, the 7-Elevens were much smaller, but I went to a 7-Eleven today because I was like, okay, I got eclairs in Japan. So I went to the 7-Eleven on Rockville Pike and Redland Road, and I walk in this, like, it's cramped. I felt like this, and they hardly have any pastries. And I'm like, is this the way 7-Elevens are supposed to be? Because it has been years, probably more than a decade since I've been in a 7-Eleven here in the States. And I'm thinking, like, is that what they are like now? Is that they're
not what they used to be. 7-Elevens, growing up, they used to be, I used to like them because they had an unbelievable choice of candies, like every single soda you could possibly want.
I drank a lot of Slurpees when I was a kid, okay?
But I remember the big gulp. Remember the big gulp? That was great.
Yeah.
That was great.
I remember when it came out, it was 49 cents. It was 1 penny less than the can of soda in a soda machine.
Yeah, but we wound up basically through 7-Eleven and Lawson's. I mean, that served as our kind of our cheap, easy breakfast in the morning in Japan, and then we went about and did other things. It's shop. My wife went. So we go there with these suitcases, which had some gifts for her relatives and whatnot, and some things for our daughter-in-law that she had requested. But my wife also packed an empty suitcase in a suitcase, because she was looking for things. She wanted to bring back things, and she filled all the suitcases. So we had a bunch of suitcases when we came back. But, the disparity in the pricing sometimes was a little bit surprising. They opened up a new Dunkin' Donuts in Korea in the basement sublevel of the hotel we were at. And so I went in there. And it's like, oh, look, they're serving like kind of an egg McMuffin type of thing, like a bacon egg English muffin. It came out to be about $2.50 for this thing, which I thought was extremely reasonable.
It is.
So I looked it up I went to the Dunkin' app this morning thinking, like, I wouldn't mind getting that sandwich once in a while. And the closest thing I could find was like $4, and I'm like, whoa. Why is this thing 60% more here than it was there? What am I missing?
And I bet you didn't see anybody named Patel running those Dunkin' Donuts either.
Yeah, no, I mean, what you do see, I mean, you see people of different races, and they're speaking Japanese, right? That's almost as if they were natives, right? I mean, you get more English in Korean than you do in Japan, at least where we were. It's easier to communicate in Seoul because it's a bigger city. And we were at Nagasaki in a city called Himeji, and then Fukuoka. I don't know. My wife doesn't feel as confident with her limited Japanese as she did 20 years ago. But yeah, I don't know. We kind of ran ourselves ragged, and I keep finding myself falling asleep in the middle of the day, much more so than I ever did before. I was like, one of these days I'll get back to normal.
It takes about a week and a half.
Did you go to a Japanese baseball game? That's the one thing I
knew we weren't going to be in a place where we were going to be able to do that. I was hoping to go to a Korean baseball game. My wife was actually willing to do so, and she doesn't like baseball at all. But she said that she would, but we couldn't quite make it work. And then her cousin's husband made some comment about the baseball games. I think they're extremely well attended. It's not.
Yeah.
I think I need to plan this a little bit more in advance, and maybe say, if we go back, contact him and say, how do we do this? Can we get maybe you can get some tickets and we can go, so that let the natives direct us rather than us tourists and stuff like that. But Japan, and baseball is big in Japan and big in Korea.
That's good. It's good in Korea that it's taken off like that. It wasn't so much when I was a kid in Japan. Yeah, baseball was big, but Now in Korea, you're right, it's become very big.
Yeah,
so that's
Korean,
cool.
the Korean baseball, I mean, is big. I mean, look how many
Are those
Koreans-
stadiums about the same size as ours, or are they smaller stadiums? Because if you remember,
they're probably a little smaller, I would think.
because you remember, like in the '80s, a lot of ball players from here would go to Japan, get a whole bunch of home run hits in their stats. Like Wade Boggs was famous for that. He played in Japan for 2 years. He came back and he got a big deal because of all of his home runs he hit out of parks in Japan.
Well, I remember I attended a baseball game when I was in Japan when I was not quite 11 years old, 1970. And
Oh, you're there for Expo 70, the one that featured the
I was
Geimer
there
movie.
for Expo 70. Yep. Because of my father's work for the Federal Reserve, we got the VIP entrance, though I didn't understand that at the time that he was the VIP. I told him, I says, it's glad that you know important people. And he goes, I am the VIP, by the way. You know, I'm like an almost 11-year-old kid. I had no clue. I was so clueless about that. You know, those memories are kind of a blur, but I remember the baseball game because at that time, you know, the star player in Japan was Satoru O.
Oh yeah.
He played for the Giants, and so yeah, you know, he was the home run king. I think he finished his career with what 700 something home runs or whatever it is.
The Japanese Babe Ruth.
Right, he was the Japanese Babe Ruth, and you know, I was still learning a little bit about baseball at that time. I wasn't huge into sports, and I remember my uncle said, "Oh, you know, pick something out like a jersey or whatever," and so I picked out and he was like, you know, he was very happy that I picked out the best baseball player, the most baseball player in Japan, and I had no idea. That's what it was.
Man.
But hey, you know, did you do the Toho Studio tour in Tokyo at all?
No, because we didn't get up to Tokyo.
Oh, okay. So you didn't fly into Tokyo, or?
No. So here's the deal. I mean, my wife looked at how the flights were, and so originally it was going to go to Japan, but when she looked at flying into Korea, it was far cheaper. It was cheaper to fly into Korea and then take a side flight into Japan and then come back and then go back out. And that actually worked out. I mean, we spent a few days with my daughter-in-law. She speaks pretty good Japanese. She'd studied Japanese. She teaches English in Japan at this point. So it was really good to see that. But you know, it helps that they have the exchange rate is pretty good these days. So if you feel that you're getting somewhat of a bargain with a lot of the things that you buy, and I don't know if you've ever seen these stores. We don't know if we have one here, Dwight, or not. Daiso, DISO, but it's a Japanese, in Japan it would be 100 yen store or the equivalent of like the dollar store.
Oh, okay, the $1.25 store.
And there's something in Rockville Pike. There's a bunch of Japanese things in Rockville Pike that I haven't investigated, and I think there's either a Daiso or something like Daiso there. But my daughter-in-law said, "Oh no," she says, "You've got to go to a place called Soriya," and we happen to be right next to a mall. And there's lots of malls hooked up to everything in Japan. And like it was great. And we went in there. It's like, ooh, it was, you know, it's 100 yen. Okay. $1 is 148 yen. So, you know, you could buy a bunch of stuff for less than $1. And we found a lot of little funny, you know, cute little things. And it was like, it was just, you know, this is the dollar store, the dollar below store. You know.
Oh, like the 99-cent store, which went bankrupt during the Biden years.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about it, I think the equivalent basically was what?
The 5 and 10.
You know, 80 cents for anything you buy in the store or something like that.
Okay. You know, CVS, when they were People's Drugstore, they used to do a thing called sidewalk sales, and they would often have bins everything was 50 cents in that bin.
Yeah, so it was quite the memory for me now. Like, wow, all right, there's a lot of things to see that I hadn't thought about seeing, and you know, we'll recalibrate and see if we go back there again anytime soon. We did go to Costco in Korea, though. We managed to get our youngest cousin to Costco in Korea. So I think
did you try using your American Costco card to see if it would work?
Oh yeah, it's fine.
Did it? Oh, does it? Okay.
The membership card is fine.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Her cousin. So she's got a few cousins. This cousin who took us around, took a day off from work to take us around. He's not a member of Costco anymore because it's too far away or something or other. And there's only 3 of them in the family, and they found a store that's better, suits them better. But he took us over there, nice enough for that. But he had said that the Costco credit card would probably not work in Korea. The Citibank card. So Young went to the counter and found out that was, it was perfectly fine to use that card to pay for the goods. That's why I took a bunch of pictures. I took a bunch of pictures just to show some of the differences in the goods that are sold. Shows how regional these places can be, right? I mean,
also, I bet there are lines where not
snacks, shiitake mushroom snacks, stuff like that you are not going to see here in the U.S. Costco. You go to the food court and there's a bulgogi pizza. So it's bulgogi is the beef, is the meat pizza. So they did that, but instead of the chicken bake, they had a pork bake, and it was delicious. The smoothie, one of the smoothies they offered, which Young had to buy, was a watermelon smoothie. If you like watermelon, this was great. So
that's crazy.
I think Costco, they show what they do. They hit it out of the ballpark wherever they are. There's about 19 Costcos, I think, in Korea, and I think there are 33 or 34 in Japan. I think we were too far away to get to one in Japan, and so that's where Young still has a target of like, we've got to go to Costco in Japan. It's like, yeah, but you don't want to spend like $30 on a taxi just to go to Costco. That doesn't make any sense to me. If she can structure a trip that where we're a little closer to Costco, where you can take the bus or the train and then have a short taxi ride, then it's doable.
Did you go to a Walmart in Japan?
No, remember, Walmart pulled out of a lot of Asian markets. They couldn't make it work. I remember going to I think I went to a Walmart in Korea 20 years ago, and I think they pulled out of that market. They just couldn't make it. They couldn't make it.
I remember there was a big deal made when they opened one in Tokyo, in downtown Tokyo.
Sometimes those models that are here don't work as well over there, especially when you have other businesses that have come in and are somewhat entrenched, right?
And I don't think the Japanese
even with Costco, they have to compete a little bit with places called E-Mart and Home Plus, which get a lot of traffic. But Costco is, it's like it was just kind of funny. It's like, okay, we see Asians when we're in Costco here, but this time it was like, 99.9% Asian. I represented, the only white guy in there or something.
It's they.
Well, I'll ask though, with Costco, do they still have the great hot dog deal at the Costco in Japan?
So good question. So it's called a hot dog set because in Asia they like to have food sold as a set. So hot dog, the soda type of thing, and they call it set. There are a lot of meals in Korea in particular, I know, and I guess there's some in Japan. It's like what we would say is a combination or whatever.
Yeah.
You use the word set so that this is your dinner set or lunch set.
I guess Chris would say the number 5 at McDonald's.
It's 2,000. Yeah, it's 2,000 won, but the won is about 1380. So it's not even $1. It's not quite $1.50. Depending upon the exchange rate, it runs like $1.40, $1.45. So the hot dog deal is even better in Korea.
Wow. But if you add airfare to get there, no, it's more expensive.
Right. I mean, let's see.
But you'll make it up in volume, though, Dave.
And you save nothing.
You'll make it up in volume, though.
It was amazing to see. I mean, it's just one of those things is that, when you're a fan of certain stores or whatever, you want to go in and see how it operates in another country if you can, and how regional it is. Because look, I mean, for any of us who shop at Costco's here, if you in the United States, if you go to a Costco, I mean, even when we go to Costco in Frederick, it's a slightly different selection
Yep.
than it is in in Gaithersburg. And there were things that we could get at Costco in Wheaton that we did not see at Costco in Gaithersburg. So even 15, 20, 30 miles apart,
Yeah.
there were differences.
I mean, it's like that, like the Costco's in Melbourne and Vieira by my house. It is, one, it's not nearly as crowded as the Costco in Wheaton or Gaithersburg or Beltsville. It's more like the Annapolis Costco, which is not Annapolis, the Arundel Mills Costco's. And I tell you, I really wonder about people who go to Costco's every other day. Do you really need to be there this often and clog up the arteries? I
Okay,
think now that they're doing
that might be me sometimes.
What they need to do is they need to, like now that they're scanning the cards, if you've been there 2 days in a row, you got to take a pause. Like kind of like when you're governor of Maryland, you're in for 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, and then you have to take a pause and then you can run again.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, here's the problem for me is that I'm 15 minutes away from Costco, right? So it's basically like my
Costco
grocery
parking
store.
is hard to find there sometimes.
Yeah, it can be, but you kind of have to know what you're doing too. And so, what happens is that, we don't really think twice about going to Costco, 2 or 3 times a week or more because it's so close by.
Yeah.
When we lived 30 minutes away, it was a once a week or once every 2-week trip because we just didn't want to drive 30 plus minutes up and 30 plus minutes back. When we go to Frederick, it's a shopping expedition. It's like Sam's Club, Costco, Walmart, I think Aldi.
Do you go to the BJ's over there too?
Huh?
Do you go to the BJ's in Frederick too?
No.
There's a
Is there a
BJ's.
BJ's in Frederick?
I think there is, isn't there? I thought
There's
there
a
was.
BJ's in Columbia. We
Boom,
went ahead.
that's
We
right.
went ahead and joined that because there was an offer for like $20 for the year for this year. Like, okay, for $20 we want to see what it's like. It's okay.
It's no Costco's,
It's Costco, Sam's, and BJ's in terms of what I think of how this works for us. So,
and Costco's actually has the best deals. They're even better than Sam's in deal wise. I find that I just like. I think Costco's overall it's a cleaner store.
Yeah, and it's better lit.
Yeah.
If you look at these 3 stores, and I've now been into 3 different, those club warehouse stores, Costco is well lit, kept clean, and great deals and really good mix of merchandise. And the other Sam's and BJ's, they're okay, but they don't really hold a candle.
It's like the old Soviet Union. That's what it's kind of like into Sam's. Like you go to Costco with just America bright lights, and happy people. You go to Sam's, everyone's kind of sad, moping around.
Well, you guys, we are old enough to remember sort of when all this started with the Woolworths and maybe the Sears. You throw in that, but certainly Woolworths because you had food there and stuff. So
I remember when Sears used to have like a little cafe also.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah, they used to have. You could buy an icy at Sears. You get their popcorn, which is really good, by the way. Not as good as the popcorn at Kresge's though. But
the Woolworths at Tyson's Corner, there was a Woolworths, and my brother's his first job was at Woolworths there. So.
Yeah, I mean, look at all the stores that are no longer here because I think we've talked about this before, like the SS Kresge and the Kmart's. They had lunch counters, right? You could go and get food and sodas and some shakes and whatever. Yeah. That's the old days. Woolworths was the same, type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, People's Drugstore used to have a lunch counter. Yeah, People's used to have a lunch counter.
I will say though, as someone who has watched way more K-dramas than anybody should really have watched, so the convenience stores are prominently featured in K-dramas, and they always have these features of like there's a counter where people can eat their ramen that they buy there as they heat it up, or they can eat and drink outside a little table. And that seems, as far as I'm concerned, that is mostly an illusion because I went to several convenience stores in Seoul itself, and I found one with a counter which had maybe 2 seats. There's like no outdoor seating. I didn't see a convenience store outdoor seating until we went out way outside of Seoul, and I'm like, yeah, they look so much bigger in these Netflix thingies. I'm like, yeah, this is not this is definitely not the way it really is, because those stores are a lot smaller than they are on TV.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's great. I mean, when I went to Japan back in 1990 to cash in on basically it was a science project and we won, and that was kind of like our prize. But I mean, I enjoyed it, and back then they didn't have the Toho Studio tours. I think they were just breaking ground for Godzilla Land or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much in there. I mean, we went to a Pokemon store locally, and bought a bunch of stuff that I'm not quite sure what.
You know
we're
what
doing
the biggest thing that shocked me about Japan? Movies in their theaters, movie houses, they don't like here. You have a movie that we gone in 3 weeks. They have movies running for like years sometimes. And it'll be like it'll be like the Titanic. Remember that ran for what, 5 years? and it's like it wasn't even that good of a movie. I remember this is actually back when I was working here. We went to go see Independence Day over at the Uptown Theater, which is no longer there, I hear. The Uptown Theater.
Yeah, I think did they close it and they're renovating it or doing something to it? I don't know what
they renovated it. I know years ago in the 80s was the last time. I thought it was going to go the way of the MacArthur Theater.
I love that theater.
Yeah, I mean, all the theaters now, they're all owned by AMC now, frankly.
I haven't been to a movie in years, I must confess. But I think you're right. AMC, there's a bunch of AMCs. You may be right. When I was a kid, I used to work at the Lowe's movie theater in Tyson's.
And then there's the Roth theaters in Maryland.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
But I guess we should get to politics.
That's what I was going to say. I think we've spent enough.
It was a big week, by the way. Big week in the news.
That was our PSA for the Japanese Tourism Bureau.
Yeah, that's it. And Korea.
Yes, and the Korean tourism. So we accept yen or dollars. Go bullion. Send it our way. Visit Japan.
All right. Yeah, as David said, it was a big week. I mean, David wrote an article about Biden's cancer diagnosis, which is good. So, which was, so I have prostate cancer. I have it spread to my bones. So there's some similarities between me and Biden on this. I actually had my 6-month visit with my oncologist today, and I asked him about Biden, in terms of this. I'm not trying to be political, just trying to see what he thought about it. And he seemed to be as perplexed by the fact that, here's a guy who should be receiving top level care.
Yeah.
And then this went undiagnosed, untested. Now he did make one comment. He says he thinks that sometimes you have these high level people, they ignore this stuff. They purposely try to ignore this kind of thing. But yeah, so it's hard to say exactly how long Biden, his life expectancy, if he has there. I mean, he's already 82, so it's probably going to get cut short, but probably won't get cut short materially at his age. A lot of 40% of men or thereabouts get it. It's like the number one killer, I think, of men and of cancer in men. So this will likely be the way that he dies. But
I remember Bob Dole was diagnosed when he was 98, I think.
Well, younger than that, I thought they took out Dole's prostate. I mean, I thought he was one of those.
Yeah, but remember it came back, and he died of cancer at 99.
Okay, but that's still a long way to go. And by that age, you get everything. And one theory I'm hearing is that it tends to be a slow-moving cancer. So men who get very old, or I don't know, up there in the 80s, they a lot of times they don't even test for it because they figure that by the time it kills you, something else will kill you.
Yeah, look, when they first got tested, and all these things were very happenstance. I wasn't supposed to get tested for prostate cancer, but I had gone into the doctor for something else, and then they when they ran the blood and they saw my PSA score, they sent me to the urologist, and then he did his test, and he says, need a biopsy, but he looked at me, this guy goes, he says, the chances are you'll die of something else before you die of this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's really encouraging.
That's that silver lining. That is that silver lining.
Well, David, you're right. I mean, this is exactly right. Prostate cancer. This is one of those strange things. If you're going to get a cancer, this is the one that you want.
Yeah.
Because it is slow moving. I have a friend of mine whose father, I think, is in his 80s or 90s, and he's had it for over 20 years.
Yeah.
So if you catch it early enough,
Yeah.
you can live still a long life.
Yeah.
If you catch it in the later stages, and mine is somewhere in that later stages, then your window is much smaller.
Yeah.
Because once it spreads outside the prostate, then it becomes much tougher. I'm lucky that I didn't get lymph nodes. I got pelvis and spine. Not great, but not fatal yet. So mine is metastatic. So it's not a great diagnosis. Biden is also in kind of the same vein. And it can spread to the parts of the body. Just because you have the prostate removed does not mean that it won't come back. It's cancer. It's very hard to eradicate no matter what. And I've seen read many cases of people who've had that, and then they're okay for a few years, and then it comes back. A lot of people who've had their prostate removed have got lots of incontinence problems and things like that. So I figure with my hot flashes and slight weight gain, which are side effects, I can live with that. I understand what going through, and we also had Lloyd Austin, had prostate cancer, right? So these things happen, but it is kind of a cover up, right? Or exactly how did this
I think there's something more sinister behind this thing. I think he probably had cancer all the way back in 2020, but they didn't want to let everyone know, because that would have been the end of his campaign for president.
Well,
they could.
And remember that slip, not to interrupt you, but remember that slip in 2022 when he talks about chemicals. He said, that's why so many of us in Delaware, including myself, had cancer. I mean, he said it, but the next day they came out and said, no, he misspoke.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that. So it's like, well.
And
here's the thing, too, is that for it to spread to the bones, it has to be there for a while, because prostate cancer, it moves slowly. So it takes a while to get to that next stage. And, for me, I think like, okay, it doesn't really take that much to test for the cancer. I mean, one of the markers is the antigen test. And that's part of the blood test. If he is a vice president or president of the United States, and they're giving them a physical every year, I assume that they're running, what they call a CMP, or complete metabolic panel. So that's basically all the blood tests that you would normally want to run. And you can include the PSA test as that. And it's not like it's really difficult to test for. You already got the blood.
Right.
So you just run the test to see if it has the markers and see what the score is. So either there's an incredible dereliction of duty on the part of doctors, or there is a blatant cover-up on the part of the Biden family and people to not let this out, because that would totally derail his presidency.
Yeah.
I don't know. I almost had shivers down my spine when I saw the news, because I'm thinking, like, we came this close potentially for Kamala Harris as president.
Yeah, that's right. And the thing is, I had this week, I'm the typical guy, I avoid going to the doctors, but finally I broke down because I had another birthday. So I went ahead and went to the doctors, and I had to do the lab and stuff, but they included the PSA. And like you said, you're already given the blood. It's a check of the box. Either just check, we'll do the PSA. And I'm at a certain age, and we're all at a certain age, that they just automatically check it. So that's why I don't understand why. I understand the guidelines, Biden's over a certain age, but it's easy to check, I don't understand why not do it. And you've got a team of doctors. You got the greatest test. You got all of that. It just seems odd that
Well,
a doctor wouldn't ask. You know.
we don't need to worry about it so much now that President Trump is president. But remember,
Yeah.
if Joe Biden were under Obama,
What's his PSA number? Do we know?
no, my point is Obama, right? He would have recommended a death panel for Joe Biden.
Well,
Well, Joe, you're going to get the surgery. You're going to die soon, anyways.
I just kind of wonder though, going forward with the fact that we've had two much older presidents, in office now, that whether or not in the future, if anybody else in that age range runs again, the people be looking to say, okay, we know you get medical treatment and everything, this, your physical, and your physician say this, but how's your PSA? Will they say, how does it stack up to that? Because that's an easily detectable cancer and easily curable, or at least one to manage. So people have, I think they have a right to know how your health is if they're going to vote for you as the commander in chief.
Yeah, especially if you're running with Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
yeah,
and definitely we're going to need to know.
yeah.
and this all and it was funny is the Svengali behind all of this was Hunter Biden, according to many reports this week, including Jake Tapper. By the way, our friend Ian Schwartz did a little sort of a book review, as he calls it, on Jake Tapper's book. I'm just more enamored by the graphic he came up with. I think this is like hilarious. Is this not typical? I mean, this is hilarious.
Yeah, I agree. That's
I
right,
think, Don, if you were still running AIM, I'd recommend we get T-shirts like this.
Yeah, it's good.
It
Yeah,
would rival the old MRC T-shirt, if you remember.
I like it.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, Jon Stewart's point on that was with Jake Tapper. Jon Stewart's like, isn't the whole point of news like to tell the news, not years later to tell me what happened? I think he's right about that.
There used to be a show on CBS, really, actually not a bad show. I enjoyed watching it. It was called the Early Edition,
Okay.
where they got
the next day's news.
Yeah, but Jake Tapper is the sequel movie about. You get yesterday's news 10 years later.
I guess so. Well, the thing is, one thing that bothered me about the whole coverage, and they all were involved in this, they had different ways to try to downplay it. They kept talking about age. It wasn't about age. It was about that he was mentally incompetent. Not about age. Age is just a number. But they would allude to his problems by just dismissing it as age and don't be an ageist. Don't discriminate just over age. Even though we're not talking about his age, we're talking about his mental fitness.
Yeah. So. And I think Laura Ingraham took Jake Tapper. I don't know if Don, you've been back enough to watch the interview she did as Jake. She really took him to task.
Okay. Well, and the other thing I've noticed is his defenders. It's a very convenient defense. Like Joe Scarborough will say, "Oh, but if you had just seen him when I saw him in that private conversation." It's convenient because it's a private conversation, so we can't see it. We didn't see it. But what about what we did see? And he downplays that about Jackie Walorski or something. He just says, well, people stumble. Yeah, I happen to think that, and this is being charitable to Scarborough, maybe he saw what he wanted to see.
Scarborough, let me tell you, I've got sources that served in the 104th Congress with him who say he was the dumbest member of the Republican delegation in 1994. He was so dumb, you had to tell him not to open his mouth in committee hearings. That is how dumb Joe. So, yeah, I would not say that's what he thought. No, he's just making that up. But I tell you this. The fact that Joe Scarborough and you've got everyone in the media is an accomplice to this cover-up. Can you imagine? I mean, they did this with President Kennedy and President Roosevelt. They covered their, we never knew about Kennedy's debilitating back issues where when he's having his famous summit with Khrushchev, he had to get several cortisone injections, I believe, just to keep going.
Yeah.
And I think it's really, I mean, the media really does a disservice. I mean, remember the media when President Reagan had colon cancer? They're all like, "Oh my God, is George Bush going to be president?" And it's like, I remember what's her name? Leslie Stahl? That was the White House correspondent for NBC, or was it? But she was like going off about. I mean, it's like, come on, people. You guys have double standards. Anyone said they don't even admit they've got a double standards. Oh no, we take the same. No, you don't. No, you don't. I've seen it so many times where, I mean, we saw it with President Nixon. I mean, President Nixon, Vice President Agnew. Let me tell you, after what we've seen with Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, I think they're saints, and we should start celebrating Nixon's birthday and Agnew's birthday in the state of Maryland. Frankly, compared to, I mean, he did not do nearly 1/10 of the stuff Joe Biden did as vice president. He was not on the take of the communists in China. He didn't get his son a job working for a oil company in Russia, in the Soviet Union, I should say.
You know what, though? And you speak about former people and double standards. Do you remember Paul Tsongas? Paul Tsongas had a cancer. I think it came back, but he knew it. He didn't say anything. He didn't get the nomination at all, but he died within 4 years of.
He would have been a great president. I mean, he would have been better than Bill Clinton. If we had to have a Democrat, because he actually is more supply side opposed to Bill. I mean, then again, compared to Joe Biden, Bill Clinton looks like he may as well be like a Republican. He's like
no. Bill Clinton, as a at least in terms of governing, wasn't that bad, really. If you look back on it. But you know, Biden also ran against Paul. I think, did Biden run in '92? Maybe he ran against Paul. He may have known about the Paul Tsongas case, about lying about
he did not run in '92. He ran in '88.
88, I remember, and so he didn't come back in '92. Okay, I didn't know if he came back to try to run again.
No.
But they say the same thing that with Beau Biden. They kind of tried to hide his cancer diagnosis as long as they could.
Cancer is a personal thing. Like, let's say, hypothetically, I don't, knock on wood, but if I wouldn't want the world to know that I've got cancer.
I agree. But if you're running for office, I guess, especially for president.
But you have a responsibility. If you're going to be president of the United States, you have a responsibility to tell the people. Remember when Larry Hogan had his cancer diagnosis?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You had all these Democrat legends. Oh, is Larry going to step down as governor? And it's like, stop wishing, and it's funny.
Yeah.
Larry Hogan.
And he beat it. He survived. Larry Hogan and got the second term.
Yeah, he beat Anthony Brown.
Yep.
In 2014.
Yep.
He basically had to deal with the riots. Then he got cancer. He beat cancer. Then he beat Ben Jealous.
Yeah.
And he's a two-term, But then again, Larry did have a lightweight in Ben Jealous. It's not like Ben Jealous was a Rhodes Scholar,
Yeah, he was lucky in that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like you said, it's a personal thing. I think it's up to the individual as to whether or not how much they want to let the world know about this. I mean, we've got, our family knows about my situation, some others, but it's not super widespread. I don't really.
Well, we're saying it online, live.
I really don't talk about it a whole lot because it's not some rare thing, and whatnot. and I'm hanging in there and not suffering too much and whatnot. But, on this Tapper thing, I don't know. I just found it to be somewhat laughable that, Tapper's got this book coming out with Alex Thompson from Axios. And So they're humping this book all over CNN. He gets on all the CNN shows. I'm thinking like, okay, first of all, you employed this guy who's basically admitting that he contributed to covering up this mental acuity issue, and your network was guilty for not just employing him, but there are other people, network on the air people that also hid these facts that seem to be very front and center. Tapper admitted with Megyn Kelly that the conservative media was right on this issue, and so they're apologizing. And as you mentioned, David, with John Stewart, I mean, Stewart is a flaming liberal.
Yeah.
For him,
he's another one of those. He's a Biden apologist, just like
for him to kind of roast Jake Tapper is just kind of delicious in that sense. It's just like they're just like, okay, there's something wrong here. I mean, now that this information seems to be coming out in this book, now you just see a bunch of liberals, a bunch of Democrats saying, yeah, he probably shouldn't have run again. The Democrats, they really are throwing Biden under the bus now that this book is out, because I think they realize it's like, okay, cat's out of the bag. Yeah, we've been trying to be hush hush about it, but we can't stop this book because this book is just a steamroller now, and that's it. So we need to explain why we supported Joe Biden or what our thoughts were, and it is funny to see these liberals saying, "Oh yeah, no, it was a bad idea. We shouldn't have done that, and we didn't get enough information from the staff or whatever." I mean, and then you still have the apologist Karine Jean-Pierre. She says, "Oh, I couldn't keep. I mean, this is just the other day. I couldn't keep up with his energy." Oh, it's like, no.
Yeah. By the way, if she could keep with Joe's energy, how low energy is KJP?
Yeah, right.
You'd be in trouble if you can't keep up with him. Yeah, you'd be in real trouble.
What if she has sloth energy?
Exactly. What kind of energy are we talking about?
I mean, if Joe Biden got tortoise energy, what if she have sloth energy?
Senator Kennedy always has the best lines. He said that Biden's slow walk. How the Biden had the slow walk he said, yeah, his walk in the time it took him to walk to the up the stairs into the airplane, you could have baked a Thanksgiving turkey.
Well, he never climbed the stairs to Air Force One.
That's right. Yeah, the small ones. Yeah.
Well, it also makes you wonder about his gait. They talked about his stiffening spine kind of thing. So this now some of this can be age related, but I kind of wonder if it had if his cancer spread to the bones and spread to the spine, whether or not that was causing him enough discomfort to do that. Because in my case, it was kind of mid back pain.
Yeah,
and that's when they found that's like, oh, you got lots of cancer there. We're going to go shoot radiation at it and kill those cancer cells.
Yeah.
It's alleviated the pain to some degree, but I think there are amazing things about cancer. You learn, you're like, it can do that. It's like I didn't realize that something like this goes all over. You think prostate cancer, you think prostate. You don't think lymph nodes, spine, lung, all these other things that it can go to if you don't treat it.
That's true. I mean,
and that's it's got to be the regrets of not getting tested, especially all those years ago for Biden. But I don't know.
Yeah, no, they're like not. For me, I'm like, this is. I say this is on me because I got away from my annual to biannual physicals. We ran into the pandemic, and I just got lazy. And
I'm the same. Oh, for me, it was the same thing. I finally went back and but I had missed a couple. I mean, it'd been a while. And then I figured this week, because the birthday and all, I was like, well, I guess I better do it. So, but it'd been a while. I'm the same way, Don. I skipped. And, finally I realized, well, I better go get tested. So it happens. I mean, it happens to all of us.
And I think men are the worst.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Don, there was a time I waited almost 15 years between physicals.
Oh wow, yeah. But if you're young, I mean, I can't do that anymore. We can't do that anymore. But you're young.
I
Yeah,
I
mean,
my
I think
wife, I don't even remember last time she had a physical per se. She doesn't like going through that stuff,
yeah, I
but
don't either.
but she has anything that she does have, the doctor will sometimes he just does a telehealth visit with her,
Yeah,
but there's nothing in her history at this point that says she's got any danger signals for stuff like that. But
yeah,
if you really want to find out if there's anything wrong with you, then you get a CAT scan or you get a PET scan, and do your whole body. That'll tell you everything more than you probably want to know.
yeah. I wouldn't. I haven't gone that far, but I just
it's
basically.
kind of like it's kind of like Clinton's policy on gays in the military. Don't want to know, don't
Uh,
tell me.
well,
Yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily should say I'm proud of this, but do you know? I think I went through my 20s. I never saw a doctor, but I got married, and then I started going back to the doctor, the first marriage, and then I started going to the doctor. But I think I went through my 20s. I don't think I ever saw a doctor. So I started
Well, I
going
mean,
back later.
I
if
was
you,
more gung ho. I think after I got married and stuff like that,
Yeah,
and then it just kind of your life gets busy, and it just starts to fade from view. And
yeah,
when your test results are okay, you think,
yeah.
yeah, I'll be okay for a while. But
Right.
I think today too we have a much better understanding of a lot of these things than we did before,
Yeah,
and I do urge younger people. I would urge younger people to get tested and get your physicals because
yeah. I
we're
agree.
seeing an alarming rise in cancer among young people.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah,
So I think that you really need to go to the doctor and get checked out because you
yeah,
do not know what is lurking there. And having lost a son to pancreatic cancer,
yeah,
that that could be lurking there, which is it's pretty hard to detect. But if you aren't getting a physical, uh, you could be a dead man walking in no time. You
yeah. That's
have
true.
you have to be very careful with this.
And your
mhm.
son was so young. Not to bring up bad memory, but yeah, your son was so young, so it's scary. That's really scary when I heard about that. That's so young. So
Yeah, and I can't remember how often he'd seen the doctor and things like that. And
yeah,
I think he
but
was.
certain cancers like that, it's just hard to detect, and
Oh, it comes out of the blue because
yeah, that's what. Yeah,
right, yeah, because I've read so many instances of people their little stories about you know my mom was just given a diagnosis or so and so, and the ages are tending to trend a little bit younger.
yeah,
So
for
they're
sure.
they're they're in they're in my age range and they're moving towards your age range.
Mhm.
Spencer was definitely kind of an outlier, but there
Yeah.
are also other cases of people in their 40s. So
Yeah,
it's like this this is something that is extremely serious, but because of where the pancreas is, you can't detect it. There's no test for it.
Yep.
yeah,
So
mhm,
so regular physicals and making sure your doctor knows about any symptoms that you have. If you got if you got lots of stomach ache or other kinds of issues, anything that revolves around these organs, then you should ask and see if they can. Then you should get a scan to see what they see. They can scan and see that, but they're not going to normally do that.
yeah.
So
Well, sorry to be a bummer with everybody. I guess maybe I'm
no,
Yeah.
too. The
no,
whole,
no, no. I mean, I look. I mean, for us, it's a public service announcement. It's really important.
Mhm.
yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, yeah. No, get checked, and and the typical
Wow.
guy like I am, and you guys may be. I put it off too for a long time. So
Yeah.
don't want to do that.
I know we're
Well,
getting I know we're getting towards the end, but I want to ask a question about how you guys feel about the big beautiful bill.
Uh, I my only issue, and I would side with it because I think it's overall still good, and we need to move forward with some of this good stuff that's in there.
our lone congressman wouldn't agree with you, Dave.
But my concern is I don't have much sympathy with the SALT deduction. I figure people live in high tax states. Sorry, you live in a high tax state, and you and the
No,
majority of
no,
people there don't.
as a resident of a high tax state,
I know. I'm talking to people that are,
you know,
but it just seems to me that that's you're paying for it, and you get these horrible governors, these legislators that drive up your taxes. Well, I'm
Although
sorry.
I'll be in Florida, so it's like
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Or move to Florida. I agree. Move to Florida or Tennessee.
I agree. I mean, it winds up when you're playing with the salt, that when you're increasing the salt, if they're going to increase it from 10 to 40, that means to me that places like Florida, Texas, whatever, any other low income or no income tax state is going to be subsidizing the people who live in New York, Connecticut, California, Maryland, wherever, as a result of that. I'm appalled that they've gone from 10 to 40. Okay. My feeling is that maybe they could have just done an indexing thing, index it to inflation, and so it creeps up a little bit because and it doesn't give liberal governors, liberal legislatures as much of an opportunity to jack up the taxes in those states even more because of the deduction issue. But when you've increased that, I mean, I think Maliataka said the other day when it was at 30, she says, "Oh, this covers like 98% of the people in my district." It's like, then that's absolutely wrong. If people are making that much money, they don't really even need that deduction. But it puts a path forward for liberal state legislatures to jack up taxes in those states and spend more money. Where's the fiscal responsibility? Republicans, you got to do this. I mean, this is something I think is bad. I mean, you can make a joke like, salt is bad for us. We shouldn't be taking too much salt. We shouldn't have this. This is a terrible part of the bill. And as the CBO, I think they look at this as that in conjunction with this, the bond market has yields have gone back up. We haven't seen these for several years since the pandemic because of the deficit and and how it's contributing to spending. Why did Moody's downgrade U.S. credit? It's because of things like this. Right? And how do you look to the U.S. as a standard bearer when they can't keep their house in order in this sense? It's like, Republicans, you're in charge. You used to be the fiscal hawks.
We're the Tea Party. We're for Social Security reform. We're for Medicare reform. We're for food stamp reform. We're for reform. We're not for
look. And I think the idea that in general for like Medicaid reform, it's needed, but you have to walk a fine line.
Why is no talk about
out waste, and it's that the Medicaid is going to go to people who actually need it. Not something that happened during the pandemic, where the government, basically relaxed and said, you can increase your roles there, and we're going to pay for 100% of that, and then 90% of that. And so the states are like, this is like free money. We'll just add all these people and expand our, and as the government cuts back, if the government basically, if they cut back Medicaid spending, funding to the states, then the states have got to make some decisions about who really does qualify for Medicaid. And there's so much abuse in these systems. This is what Elon Musk was trying to do, right? He was trying to squeeze out all this fraud and all this waste.
And furthermore, I think the whole, nobody's talking about Social Security reform or raising the retirement age. What is it right now? 63, the retirement age, or 65?
Well, full retirement for baby boomers. So, this current is 66 years and 10 months.
See, I'm just saying,
for me, because I was born in September. So for people born in 1959, it's pretty much that. So it depends upon the year that you were born. But you remember, I mean, it used to, you could start collecting benefits at 60, 62, but you lose a big chunk of your retirement benefits for claiming it early. Then it used to be 65, but then they changed it, and so then it went to like 6610 for most people now. And then they want to continue raising that up. People do live in general longer than what far longer than when the Social Security system was established. And
so you were dead at 67 in 1945,
right? And it is not
in the 1940s.
It is not a retirement system. It is supplemental to your retirement, but it's not there to replace all your income. And that's the problem.
And also,
that's it.
Yeah, and other people, and here's the other problem with Social Security. I mean, it's FDR, so I mean, what they should have done is that becomes your individual saving, like a Coverdale savings account. The Social Security money becomes your own individual savings account, and you can will it to your kids when you die. But no, this is we're just free money, and I think we should raise the minimum retirement age to 70, maybe.
Probably.
I'll compromise for 70.
And grandfathered in for people of a certain age. Younger than a certain age, you go higher.
Yeah, or you step it in there so that people born in a certain year, they're not, they're going to be at 67 or 67 and a half, and then 68, 60, until you finally hit that. So
I don't see
type of idea.
Yeah, and I don't see myself ever retiring before 72 myself, frankly.
Right, and 65 is an arbitrary sort of thing. Who says
my dad worked till he was 70 something
Huh?
years old. My dad worked till he was 71.
Right, yeah. So 65 is kind of an arbitrary thing. I don't know why.
So here's the other kind of conundrum you run into with Social Security as someone who, if you're trying to claim it, is that when to claim, right? I mean, do I wait to 70? I don't know what my life expectancy is anymore for sure. I think I will, based on the doctor, he thinks I'll live another 10 years or thereabouts. So that means I could probably wait to 70 and collect the extra 8% a year in benefits that will be permanent once I collect, right? On the other hand, they say your average is about 12 years to collect all the benefits that you paid into the system. So if I wait to 70, I'd have to live to 82. And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, how much am I really sacrificing if I just don't try to claim it a little earlier and try to get more of the money that I already paid into the system back?
Yep.
So, my wife is going to claim hers this year. It's going to be a whopping like $900 a month. She didn't work much, but at least this way she can claim it, and then then you have to have the whole thing about people were getting Social Security. They added insult to injury to some people because if you earn a certain amount of money, then 85% of your Social Security benefits were then taxed. So then you're back to the taxing again.
See, I think Social Security should not be that income should not be a taxable income, frankly.
Yeah,
I would rather exempt all or a portion of Social Security from being taxed than the no tax on tips.
Yeah.
I also think that when you take money out of your IRA, I should not have to pay a tax on that either, frankly. I don't care that it was tax exempt. So what? Do more with less, federal government. You don't need my whatever I take out of when I'm required to take the RMDAs. Because you got to pay a tax on if you want to touch your own money.
Well, it's double taxation in that sense because you already have, if you had the traditional Roth, the traditional IRA, and you take it out early before you're 59 and a half, right? Then you have to pay a 10% penalty, and it's declared as income. I don't think declaring it as income is is a big deal because you didn't pay tax on that, except for Social Security and Medicare when you put it in. So yes, it needs to be taxed at some point based on our tax system. But to pay a penalty just seems to be adding insult to injury. Though I think that is something that they threw in there to say, we want to make sure that you have money at your retirement. So if you take that out, that 10% penalty is there to make you think twice before taking it out. But it's your money.
Yeah, I know a lot of people during the .com crash. A lot of people who lost their jobs and they didn't even get their severance out of it because those .coms, you show up and the doors are locked. Maybe I knew a lot of people that there's a friend of mine took money out. Basically bit the bullet and took I want to say a substantial amount of money out of his IRA. I'm like, well, are you crazy? You've got.
I mean, how about something like, okay, look, if you want to have a penalty tax you're taking out early, maybe it's based on when you first put the money in.
Yes.
And every year that you keep the money in and untouched, that tax goes away by like 1%. So that after you keep the money in for 10 years, you owe no penalty.
Yep.
That would be halfway reasonable.
Yes, but no, they gotta have they're like leeches, it's funny. There was it's really bad. They just want to tax, and spend,
Well, I mean,
spend.
yeah, they're going to try to tax. They're going to try to take everything they can. Ultimately, it's like a cancer in a sense. They're trying to
Yeah, I
try to
mean,
do it early.
honestly, if there are Democrats who say, let's say if I die tomorrow and I've got say $7 million in my various savings accounts and stocks and all that, right? There are Democrats who think that money should all just be forfeited to the government.
Yeah, it's like a wealth there for a wealth tax. I mean, even
Yeah,
if you
they
have
would. They if they had their way, they would want to take whatever money's in your bank account the day you die. The federal government will come and take it away from you. That is what Democrats want.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Why does the government? Why do they need to, to tax you up to what 55% on your, on an inheritance tax?
Yep.
They had nothing to do with how you created that wealth.
Yep.
Yeah,
They're money grabbers at that stage. So
yeah,
I hope we just don't see the expiration of inheritance taxes of that. That how they've raised the estate tax.
Mhm.
Keep it high, keep it relatively high, so
I
that
think.
so that it'll cover the majority of Americans. The uber rich, they can afford to do whatever, and they've got an army of accountants and lawyers
Mhm.
that will find a way to keep that bill low.
I mean, if you,
The rest
I
of
mean,
us
if you don't,
Joes, we don't have that ability, and so there's a potential that whatever money we have left over, that our heirs might get socked with something unless we figured out some kind of tax angle.
yeah, you got. That's why you got to put everything in a trust,
Right, right.
and because they can't touch that trust, no matter how
I
much
think
Jamie
that's
Raskin
I,
thinks.
I think that's right. I think you'd have to trust. There's certain ways you can do it because Jamie Raskin and the others, if they can take every dime you got, I think they'll do it. So
Oh, well, the worst part is they feel it is it's morally the right thing to do to take. They don't like generational wealth. And their
yeah,
famous example is Warren Buffett isn't leaving his kids. Yeah, he's not leaving all that money to the government. He's giving it to various foundations, and
yeah,
so
yeah,
it's not like you're getting all of his billions.
yeah. That's right.
And I'm sure his kids are taken care of already,
Yeah,
so
I'm sure.
they're not going to be hurting.
And I may be wrong on this, but I think like in Maryland, when it comes to the income tax, they follow the federal tax, right? I mean, basically, you have in Maryland, you basically plug in your information from your 1040. And Maryland's got a couple little quirks in how they do things, and so you may owe a little bit more, you may get a little more back or whatever. But when it comes to a state tax, they have a very low threshold. They don't follow the federal formula, so which tells you exactly what they're looking at. This like, they want your money when you die. They don't like the idea that the feds have raised it to whatever 5 million or 10 million or whatever it is per person. They've kept theirs ridiculously low, which would actually capture a lot of money potentially from people, just the average person. Especially if you've got a house in this area and it appreciates and it's part of your,
Yeah.
you're going to wind up.
See, I tell you, Mike Collins, the radio guy that talks about retirement, he points out, he goes, you may not think you have a lot of money. He goes, you start throwing your house in and your stock portfolio and your, as he was talking about, like, everyone's got a 401k, you throw all that. He goes, you're easily going over the threshold in Maryland. I think it's $500,000 or $1 million is what the tax deduction. I think it's $2 million in Virginia. He goes, you easily go over that with the price of your house. He goes, even a shack, he says, in McLean is close to $1 million.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well,
Okay,
Dwight,
so
are we coming up on final thoughts?
Yes, we are. We're 10 minutes
I was
over.
just looking this up just really quick though.
What?
Maryland's estate tax. So the federal estate exemption is 13.99 million for an individual, 27.98 for married couples. Maryland's threshold is lower. It's down. It's at 5 million. So they they've not following the federal standard. They're saying, okay, 5 million, we'll grant you that, and anything over that, we're taking money from you. But I don't see why they shouldn't be following the federal standard.
A house in Potomac is probably 5 million, right?
Right. No.
Yeah. I mean, a house
our house is finally just about back to where it was when we bought it 21 years ago. In terms of after improvements and everything like that. But we're seeing houses. We just saw, my wife just saw a house that's being sold in the vicinity, part of the same complex, and they're asking, I think, 1 or 1.1 million. That's what's happening here. If you have that, plus people have other assets, it's not hard to imagine people getting to 5 million very easily.
Yeah.
We're over time here, so.
Yeah, so final thoughts, Dave, you go.
I got my health checked. I told you that, so that went fine. I've got did my first podcast on my own, so we'll see how that goes.
Oh, good.
I should have a column this weekend. Oh, and Phil Hamilton, Phil and I got together, former delegate from Newport News, and we did a podcast, so I think it went okay. And not to go too much in the weeds, but that's going to go to my Substack subscribers as a way of inducing. I have some paid subscribers. I want to do something for them, so I do that. Maybe it's an inducement.
You should get Governor Allen on your podcast.
Yeah, let's see if he'll do it. And I guess the only other thing is, I had a funny. You guys might get a kick out of this experience the other day. It got my heart going. I hear this knock on the door, bang, bang, bang. I don't know what it was. I go there as a police officer. So the police officer said, "Yeah, you want to come out and talk, or I can come in?" I said, "Oh, well, whatever." So I came out, and he started asking me, about a complaint from the wife or something. I said, "Well, I'm not married." And we've turned out that he was at the wrong house. So that was kind of scary. But it's interesting to see a police officer. He had tattoos all over his arms. He's like a kid, and I didn't want to be snarky, but my first reaction when I saw him was like, "What the hell happened to your arms?" But I didn't say anything.
Yeah. It's a different world, isn't it now? I mean,
yeah. I mean, it was a different. It was a wrong house, but when I started talking to him, I'm thinking, well, what the heck did I do? And then he mentions, "Oh, I got a complaint from your wife," and I told him, I said, "I don't have a wife," and so then we realized it's the wrong house. So,
what would have been funnier, Dave, if he had tried to sell you policeman ball tickets instead?
Oh yeah, I don't know, but it's kind of intimidating, The police officer shows up, and then he's like, "I got a buddy coming here in a few minutes," and I'm like, okay, whatever. But anyway, that was my little fun experience. But otherwise, doing well, and I should have another column this weekend. So check it out.
So how far off were the police officers anyway, though? I mean, were they
just one street over? The funny thing about the neighborhood is that they have the same street numbers. So if you get onto the wrong street, you're going to see the same street numbers, and so it's easy to get deceived. And the two street names are so similar that it's been happening it happens all the time that they're going to.
Does the cops have shown up more than once at your house?
This is the first time ever, and I know the neighbor, so the neighbor I thought was pretty good. So I don't.
Yeah, now you're like, well, what's going on?
No, it's interesting. I would go to the neighbor's house a lot because my books would be dropped off at his house and not mine. So I would walk on the street, go get my books, and so I got to know him a little bit. So I don't know what's going on there, but anyway. So that's it.
Okay, Don, final thoughts.
Yeah, just some more things we didn't get to tonight. But so President Trump kind of sent the stock market down again today. It goes up and down depending upon what comes out of Trump's mouth or is on Truth Social, and usually related to tariffs. And just when the market thinks that they're largely got the tariff thing under control, he comes out and he says, tariffs on the iPhone if they're not made in America, and and also on the EU. And I'm like, okay. So as an Apple user, lover, whatever, aficionado,
yeah,
I hate this idea. I realize that this is some jawboning. It's like there are things that are just plain stupid and make no sense, and this is one of them, because you cannot. There's no way you're going to make an iPhone in this country at a reasonable price. Okay, you know, even if you slap a 25% tariff on the iPhone, just by all the process of moving the manufacturing here and trying to get this thing going, I would bet that the iPhone would wind up costing as much, if not more, than the tariff itself in trying to get it made in America.
Well,
You know,
and
so-
what would happen is people won't buy iPhones, and I do like my iPhone. You know, it has many times replaced my big Nikon. You know, frankly,
Yeah.
to take pictures. Takes just as good
no,
quality as the Nikon.
It's like, are you trying to help the economy really when you're basically throwing this tax on products that people like or need or want or whatever?
Yeah.
This serves no purpose whatsoever. I think Trump has sent a message with the tariffs, and I think it's been fairly effective. But I think the time to, with a trade war, it's past now. Okay, you've made your point. You've got some people to capitulate. You've had to capitulate yourself in order to kind of calm the markets. Can we just get our normal lives back so that manufacturers and consumers can have some idea about what we're facing? Consumer confidence is way down, et cetera, because of all this. So I don't. So I have some doubts about those that are advising Trump, but he is kind of that fire hose. He's just uncontrolled, and you just never know what he's going to do on this. I also have mixed feelings at best about the Pentagon accepting the Qatari plane as Air Force One. I don't think that this is not a good look. This is not a good idea. I realize that Boeing is years behind on this, but this is the wrong signal. That plus Trump's meme coin dinner, also bad. We can laugh about it, but it's just bad. I mean, this does make him look like a grifter in chief. Okay, I know liberals. I hate to even come close to agreeing with any liberals and some of the stuff, but it is just he's just gone down the wrong path on this stuff, and he's the president of the United States. There's a path he should take, and this is not it. Okay? And maybe I'm going to get a lot of MAGA haters or something like that. Well, that's fine, because then your head's in the sand. I'm sorry, and I want to know, Dwight, where is the Orioles magic?
It's there. It's a rebuilding year, Don. It's a rebuilding.
But it's not supposed to be. They won like 90 games last year.
Have you driven?
And they won 101 the year before. They have all this
yeah.
great talent, except what do? They spent like no money. They let Corbin Burns, their best pitcher, go. They didn't put any money out to try to retain him. And so they pieced together this rest of this pitching squad, who have been absolutely terrible. Even their best pitchers are out with injuries, and their young stars, for the most part, aren't hitting. So you've got a team that has regressed. It is the most disappointing. It's got to be one of the most disappointing teams in baseball. I mean, the Colorado Rockies are on pace to lose 137 games, which hasn't happened since like 1890. Yeah, this is the worst team since 1895, which is just crazy. But the idea that the Orioles would go from where they are last couple of years to this, and they got a new owner. I mean, all the complaints about the Orioles in the past have been about the Angelos family not spending money. They got David Rubenstein. He's like Steve Cohen. He's got tons of money. What are they doing now?
He's cheap.
They fire the manager. They make him the scapegoat. The general manager.
It's not the manager's fault, by the way. Just saying,
Well, the thing is, in this statement that the GM issued, he says that I have to take responsibility for what is going on here. It's like, okay, if you're taking responsibility, then why are you making the manager the scapegoat? You should resign. So they should fire you, because you're running the team and you have put together this team, and it is your responsibility to get the manager, the players, to that they can succeed with.
Yeah.
Brandon Hyde that was not given the people that he needed. They let their biggest home run hitter go, right?
Yeah.
They signed another guy who's injury prone, and he's doing that again this year. He's on the injury list, and he hasn't hit. They spent $50 million on this guy on a 3-year contract.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they've got, what do they have? Nationals envy? Come on.
I mean, the Nationals. I mean, they're okay. Nationals drive me crazy because it's been, what was their championship year? 2019. So we're 2025, but they actually are looking better than they have. I mean, they've been making small bits of progress, and
Mhm.
the young star, some of the young kids they got in the Soto trade are starting to pay off. So they're
Mhm.
getting there, but this is, I mean, I'm kind of like, is this a 10-year rebuild? I don't know. How much longer do I have the patience with
Well,
this?
it's kind of like this, right? It's like, as I mentioned, it's a rebuilding year for the Orioles, and I'll tell you why. I've been going, when I was about 3 years old, we went to Pennsylvania, up 83, and there was construction. And then I went to Baltimore when I was driving, around maybe 16, 17 years old. That construction was still there. They're always rebuilding Baltimore. So the Orioles are part of that whole rebuilding of Baltimore. So there we have it. That is
Yeah,
the
I don't know.
rebuilding
You're
year.
such a homer for Baltimore. It's just like this is a disaster in Baltimore this year. This should not be happening.
Hey, the Orioles are the best thing in Baltimore City right now. That's the only reason you'd want to go into Baltimore City these days.
That part may be true.
Although I do want to let everyone know, but if you do want to, there is a reason to go to Baltimore. Can't believe I'm saying this. You do want to go to Baltimore. You want to go there June 27th for the Baltimore City.
Maryland Pizza Club night at the O's game.
Actually, we do. Actually, Emperor Zaner really wants to do that.
I'd go up for it.
Yeah. And
But not to interrupt because I don't want to delay us, and I know it's not my time, but I do think it was unfair that Brandon Hyde got fired.
well, Friday the 27th, Baltimore City has their Lincoln Day dinner with Armstrong Williams, our old friend.
Yeah.
We all know Armstrong, actually, Dave.
Armstrong is going strong. This is the amazing thing. It's like you
He's the
think by
co-owner
now he'd
of
be
the
like
Baltimore
he'd be
Sun.
retired and just enjoying life, but he's out there fighting.
Yeah.
He
And
is.
he looks good for whatever his age is.
He's
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah. So
I'm
Dave,
pretty
if you're
sure.
not doing anything, it's a Friday night. You should come on now. We should go see
I
if
will.
Armstrong remembers you from the old NET days.
Yeah, no, I remember him. I don't know if he'd remember me. I doubt it, but I remember him, of course.
Oh darn, he's only 63 years old. I thought he was older.
That's young.
He was liked by everybody there. But who was the old? We didn't think much of the old general manager, but I know he liked Armstrong a good bit.
Oh, the guy that looked like he was always cranky.
Yeah, no, who was the guy gray hair? He was the CEO for a while.
Oh, what's his name? Dooley, Tom Dooley.
Not Tom Dooley, but the GM, the big guy, as we were making the conversion to NET.
Oh, Bob Sutton.
Yeah, Bob Sutton. I think.
Oh,
I
but
remember
he's
Bob
no longer. Bob Sutton's no longer with us either.
Yeah, he's no longer with us. And I don't think Tom Dooley's with us. I don't think.
No, yeah, somebody told me he passed away. Joe
Yeah.
Stars may have told me that.
But Tom Dooley, remember Adrian Dales? No, I know we're
This is reminiscing.
Remember Greg
Adrian was a
Jenkins?
nice guy. Adrian
Remember
Dales.
Greg Jenkins when he was a Republican?
Yeah, he's a lefty now. I saw him.
Or Major Garrett when he was a Republican?
Yeah, he's a lefty. I don't know that he's ever really a Republican. He was kind of coy about it, I think. But
Who's that?
Major Garrett's kind of coy about it, his politics.
No, we've got footage of him. I wish I could find
He
archival.
was better
footage.
before than he is now.
Yeah,
but I remember when he would grill him, Tom, and Marianne Fogelson and Larry Klayman. Remember Larry Klayman, everyone?
Yeah,
Larry Klayman?
that's right. Yeah.
They would do during the Whitewater hearings. And now Major is. I really would like to leak some of that video of him on NET. He probably won't be welcome at those Georgetown cocktail parties too much after that.
Yeah, I was no fan, by the way. Yeah, I was no fan.
He was very pompous.
He was. Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
But you know what? To get to that position, you kind of have to be a kind of a
No, you don't. No, you don't. Steve Ducey is a heck of a nice guy, and he is a much bigger name than Major Garrett.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And Steve Ducey is one nice guy.
Yeah.
Actually, his son Peter's really nice too. Actually, we met him in Cleveland at a press party along with what's his name, Mr. Bernstein. And I got to tell Mr. Bernstein, don't you think you owe the Nixon family an apology with your silence on Hillary Clinton? And he goes, "Oh, look, this was a crook." Yeah. Yeah, you guys gonna still sing that same song. But actually, my final thoughts. One is Baltimore City has their Lincoln Reagan dinner, June 27th, in Baltimore City. Also in Kent County, yours truly and Bonnie Glick will be speaking at their Lincoln Day dinner on the shore. Great dinner. Come on out, buy tickets. Going to Kent Island. It's not Kent Island. I'm sorry, Kent County, and it's an easy drive. You can drive, and since we're in daylight savings time, you can drive back and it's still light. And it's a Thursday night, and then Dorchester County has a Lincoln Day dinner on Saturday, June 14th, Flag Day. Great. Lincoln Day dinners on the shore are awesome. Lincoln Day dinners on this side of the bay are really awesome too. Baltimore City does a really good job. They have the best desserts I've had anywhere. I mean, you go to these dinners, you have things like Black Forest cake and stuff like that. Yeah, who likes Black Forest cake? Jams or jellies should not be mixed, or fruits should not be mixed with desserts. That's just one of my commandments. So also check out the Montgomery County Republican Club page. We've got content. We've got articles, everything. I mean, we had an article about the shooting by young Aaron Ackerman. And let me just talk a little bit about that. Don, Dave, you guys remember when Rush Limbaugh was blamed for the Murrah building bombing?
Yeah.
Sarah Palin for the Gabby Gifford shooting?
Yeah.
I'm going to put this one on Joe Biden, AOC, and the squad, and Democrats for this, frankly. They made it comfortable for people like this to do this in broad daylight. They gave them, safe havens. The universities at Columbia, they had their graduation. Well, they had a bunch of protesters. They did that at George Washington. They didn't do that at Maryland, by the way, where Kermit the Frog delivered the commencement address.
Yeah.
And you know who delivered the commencement address over at Georgetown? The Fonz himself. Young Mr. Ian Schwartz wrote a great article comparing that to Timmy's speech at the University of Minnesota. Now, the Fonz, let's not careful. The Fonz is a lib. Okay, he's a Hollywood liberal, but his speech was positive. It was go out there and, unlike Tampon Timmy, whose speech was the world sucks because I'm not vice president, and so on. But that is it for my final thoughts. We'll see everyone next week, and have a happy and safe Memorial Day weekend this week. And so so any plans this weekend, guys? You guys go anywhere? Ocean City?
Nope.
Okay.
That was my younger days.
Younger days, yeah. I'm actually gonna go help a friend buy a car tomorrow. By the way, I'm thinking of buying a car again.
Yeah, you should buy cars.
I took the Cadillac in for an oil change. The guy said, we give you $67,000 if you want to trade this in. I'm like, that's more than I paid for in a car. So, yeah, I'm toying about the idea of possibly swapping it out for a Yukon. Also, the fact that my Cadillac's also in that GM engine recall, too. So,
all right.
Anyways, good night, everyone.
Good night.
And don't forget to go to Missoni's.
Let's go down to Missoni's, where Italian cuisine shines. Let's go down to Missoni's, we'll have a good old time. Homemade pasta at Missoni's, sauces fresh and fine. Good friends gather at Missoni's, join us anytime. astonish, freshly churned each time. Bring your laughter and your friends, joy is what you'll find.